Good morning. So I'm going to introduce a new DNS animal, the DNS TAPIR. My name is Mikael Kullberg, and where's the thing? Here's the thing. Yes. DNS TAPIR is a sort of a backronym for threat and privacy in research. Tapirs are really cool. The one in the logo is a Malaysian one. The Japanese have a mythical tapir that eats nightmares, so we really should make more tapir cuddly toys. The reason why we emphasize the "and" is that you typically get security or privacy, but not both. So our plan is to change that. So the thing about DNS and privacy is that we kind of take them for granted. No one really pays any attention until they were all gone. And I also take for granted that I won't need to explain DNS, right? Threats, well, these are all the usual suspects, like botnet command and control, exfiltration, phishing, all those sort of things. Privacy, well, privacy is at the center of the DNS TAPIR project, and it's one of our core principles, or it is our core principle. We aim to collect data as widely as possible and create data commons for DNS research. And our plan is to do that without actually having any personal data at all. So I'm going to break one of those rules where you're not supposed to mix technology and politics. But it's really hard to talk about personal data without becoming political. The slogan is a feminist slogan. It was against a time when there was too much privacy. Things that happened in the home were seen as a domestic affair, and there were no real legal protections against anything that happened in your home. The reason I bring this up is because I lost it. A parallel to this is that privacy is largely self-managed. We're having to deal with privacy ourselves, which is of course impossible. I mean, there's so many things you need to check to not send private information. The cookie law is a disastrous example of this, and it's pretty much cemented the whole self-management thing into our daily lives. The GDPR is being somewhat abused in that as long as you tell everyone that you're logging everything, then it's okay to log everything. In Sweden, we're currently having an issue with the unlawful access and loss of data part. So there's a lot of things with GDPR that isn't working out as planned, and the worst one is probably data minimization. The only safeguard we have against that is probably Max Schrems, but he's too busy with cookies to look at DNS. So we're collecting too much data, and one of the reasons for that is that we're valuing companies based on the amount of data they have. We're also not protecting it very well. So we have DNS, we have data disappearing out into it's being stolen or lost. Companies also go bankrupt. The sort of personal history company 23andMe got acquired, and I hope you all changed your DNA by now. There's a lot of issues with data. So I predict that eventually companies that are forced to deal with private data are probably going to have a lower evaluation because of the risks involved. Because what's acceptable today might be unthinkable tomorrow. And this means that we need to be really, really careful and responsible when we collect data and make sure that it's true to purpose, even if it gets lost or acquired or subverted somehow. So this isn't really true. It came for other people as well, but these are sort of friends and former colleagues, so it touches close to home. And this, well, pulling him off the air because he's an inconvenience to the president is probably one of the worst First Amendment, or most visible at least, First Amendment breaches in a while. He's back, I know that, but it's still going to have a chilling effect, and people are going to start doing what's called obeying in advance. We're in a new sort of, not global warming, but we're in a global chilling environment when it comes to the internet. And that's because people are being careful about what data they give you. Now, what does this prosecution and censorship have to do with data collection? Well, the government actually does have to have personal data. We can't have a government that doesn't have personal data. So we still have to give it to them, but we really should make sure that it's as little as possible, because, well, both history and recent events tell us that we shouldn't be keeping too many things, at least not in one place. Because what's unthinkable today could very well be acceptable tomorrow. So change goes both ways. Well, isn't privacy dead anyway? I mean, Vint Cerf said so it's got to be true, right? Well, we still close the door when we go to the bathroom. We don't run to the store naked. Well, in Sweden, that could be for other reasons. But one of the main differences between the internet and MeetSpace is that on the internet, you're sort of public by default, whereas when you're in sort of the real world, you're private by default, mostly because the information about you in the real world is sort of geographically local. It's probably not extremely interesting, and it moves a bit slower. So this is actually a feature. So for DNS TAPIR, this is what we try to do. We basically don't want to pull data out from the edge, so we leave the private personal data at the edge. Whenever I get depressed over these things, and it does happen, I tend to do the engineering thing and play around with technical gadgets. Technical gadgets are unfortunately also dependent on the existence of privacy. The West is at the forefront of technological development, and there are probably many reasons for that. But one of the main ones is the free exchange of ideas, both public and private. So, does anyone actually remember anything invented by or in East Germany? The Trabi is the only thing I can think of. So creativity suffers from when you don't have privacy, creativity suffers. What is it Zuckerberg usually says? It stifles innovation. That's the word. So we saw it in DDR, and we see it in North Korea today. Lack of privacy or surveillance kills innovation. So the effect of this is, one of the main effects is the chilling effect, which, for instance, when Snowden exposed the NSA PRISM project, Wikipedia noticed a significant drop in searches to their pages that were more sensitive, and Google searches had the same thing. So if you have a lot of data, you probably want to do something with it, usually monetize it. Today, that seems to largely be using dark patterns to trick people to buy more stuff. Unfortunately, it's also used by politicians to get you to buy their crap. So collecting data and having data is bad. So what do we do? I mean, there's still good reasons for collecting data. I mean, internet threats is the obvious one. But when we're looking at DNS data, especially as we're doing from the resolver side, we're looking at sort of innocent bystanders or sometimes victims, but not really the bad guys. Another thing that I would like to look at is that DNS is starting to be used for tracking and exfiltration of personal data, etc. So there's a lot of stuff going on in DNS that used to go on in cookies. So the bad guys seem to live in the authoritative section. But starting with QMIN, or QNAME minimization, is really, really hard to see what they're doing, except at the resolver. Enough about privacy. Another principle we have is transparency. Because with transparency, you can create trust. And trust is vital for creating or for limiting chilling effects. So we're transparent about how we collect data, minimize them, anonymize, transmit, use, etc. All the usual stuff. But we're also transparent. So here's where we are. Here's an overview, just so we have context. We're also transparent about how we collect data. The data collection is done at the edge, and it's done by the operator. We don't actually have any access to the data that they have. The data stays with the operator. The edge system that we call TAPIR edge is sort of the cookie jar we keep our fingers out of. The analysis part doesn't actually receive any of the closer, more private data. The output isn't proprietary either, so we can't really match it to any commercial lists, which is fine because we actually think that the decision on what to modify in DNS is up to the operator. It shouldn't really be a list sent by us that says block this or remove this. So the policy processor, I should mention, this is the thing that can basically take lists from anyone and merge them together and produce a local RPC that maintains lists that people use. So collaboration. Collaboration is a big thing. We're a group of people. We're all sort of just interested in making the internet a better place. There's a bunch of organizations supporting us, etc. That's about as solid as the DNS TAPIR project is, but everyone's really engaged in trying to build something really cool. The basic idea is to collect data across the entire country of Sweden to create a baseline for how DNS looks like in Sweden. So the idea is to take this data and create a data commons. With many parties interested in this data, we're hoping it's going to be a sort of less biased research. DNS collection is kind of troublesome and not very profitable. So we're lucky to be able to do this sort of collaborative model, which might benefit everyone. So open source is another one. It gives you transparency. It also gives you collaboration, but it's also a culture where we can behave respectfully even though we disagree, and it helps you think about how to design and create code. It also allows you to exceed what you were expecting, build something better than you thought from the beginning. So these are the principles we try to live by. Yeah, so yes again. Presentations continue until privacy improves. I've already given hints on how we deal with DNS data. We anonymize, not using pseudonyms because it needs to be GDPR safe. The Swedish Internet Foundation commissioned an external review of our privacy policies, and they looked through our controls and agreed that our data was anonymous. If you ask them nicely, maybe they'll let you look at it. So pseudonyms are bad anyway. It's the one-to-one mapping between the pseudonym and the user that gets you every time. So if you have a CDN, you can just look at traffic that hits your CDN. You have a secondary source for the information about the user. If you have the ability to manipulate DNS queries, you can create your own secondary source. So if you just need one data point to re-identify that specific user. Switching doesn't work very well either, because the patterns in the DNS query stream are usually specific enough to be able to keep a consistent user identifier across transitions. Now, lucky for us, we also have the ad tech companies. They put markers in the DNS queries that makes it even easier to make sure you find your sort of next section. And they might even help you find out who the user actually is. So we break things up and break up sequences to make sure that we don't see these sequences that we can identify. And one way of doing that is creating aggregates. We find things that are not particularly interesting, like Google, etc., and we take them out of the data. This also removes some embarrassment, because, I mean, Pornhub is equally boring as Google. And it also makes our data much smaller. All the new stuff, new domains are malicious, well, most of them. I used to have the data to prove this, but today you'll just have to take my word for it. And the specific subdomains typically identify a user or are specific for a user. So we remove those and we send them as events. So to illustrate, first of all, the operator can remove domains he doesn't think are relevant, like internal domains, etc., and also specific source addresses, etc. So this is stuff that we throw away, or, I mean, if the operator wants to, he can also give it as a present to his security operations team. Like I said about aggregates, we take them and we store them in a sort of popularity list to make sure we have information about the larger movements on the internet. The events are typically, well, very specific domains. And we send those as events because then we can sort of remove all the context from the user that sent the query. So even if you can identify the user that sent that specific query, it won't give you all their other queries. And last is everything else. These are not well known and they're not unique. So we basically, right now we throw them away because we're waiting for our local analysis engine to be complete, at which point we can look at them. So where are we today? Go back to this picture. Everything except the red part exists and works. Our own resolver has been up for a year. It's had enough QPS sent to it to actually have one of our upstream authoritative providers rate limit us because we were asking too many questions. The local analysis engine is a work in progress. It uses machine learning, not the other thing. And for the this analysis part, the first TAPIR core system is being built with the help of the Swedish Internet Foundation. It's actually a great place to be if you're going to do DNS analysis, because they're somewhat removed from government and they're also somewhat removed from business. They have a focus on DNS and they're not going to try to sell you a security appliance. this will hopefully make them, well, I shouldn't say unbiased, but at least less biased in terms of what is being researched. Everything for landing data exists. Analysis tools exist. Our production level system is, well, having a few snags ironed out, but everything works. And just to credit those who actually made this system possible, this is a loosely coupled distributed system of people who all brought something unique to this project. Some of them are here, and I'd just like to say thank you. Any questions? I think we have a few minutes. If you have any large questions, please grab us outside. We have a table outside in the lobby, so just grab me there or grab anyone else who looks like they belong there. No questions. Then I just saved you 3 minutes. So there's a question.
Yeah, sorry, it was supposed to be tagged with a hashtag, but so I missed it. Are you focused on client query data? And how about resolver response? Is Zgast, and no name and affiliation in the chat.
So right now we're looking at the client query data, but basically we're using DNS TAP to collect data from the resolver. But yes, it's on the client side, which is why we're really, really cautious when it comes to minimizing the data and removing all sort of information that comes from the client.
Yeah, thank you.